Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm doing a Mikanko deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Mimi. And this deck is an extremely consistent going second version of Mikanko that can OTK your opponent extremely easily. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Linking your name, description, every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. And definitely give Mimi some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Ohime. This card is our main boss monster that actually searches cards out of the deck, which is amazing. This card has an awesome ability that cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving this card, which is a really awesome effect, especially if you give your opponent a humongous kaiju like we do with this build. This card also has a really cool ability that you can reveal this card in your hand to add a Mikanko card from your deck to your hand, accept another copy of this card, then discard a card, which is really cool because some of our cards actually benefit from being in the graveyard. Also, quick effect, you can target an equip spell in your graveyard and equip it to one appropriate monster on the field, which is a great ability because one of the cards you might discard for its effect is going to be an equip spell. We then play 2 copies of Huli. This card is a great 2-of in the deck, and all of your main deck Mikanko monsters actually share a common effect. If this card is not equipped with an equipped card, you take no battle damage from battles involving this card, but if this card isn't equipped with an equipped card, it cannot be destroyed by battle, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving this card. Which is a crazy thing about all of your main deck Mikanko monsters, that basically your opponent takes the damage and you don't, making it super easy to OTK your opponent. But this card is great as well because it has a super unique ability that while you control an equipped card, your opponent cannot target Mikanko cards you control with card effects, which is a great effect to give you targeting protection. And if either player equips and equip cards to this card, you can add a Mikanko trap from your deck to your hand, which is great to be able to grab one of your Mikanko traps. We then play 2 copies of Hari. Hari is great as a 2-of in the build because this card has a super cool ability that if a equip card becomes equipped to this card, you can add a Mikanko equip spell from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect. So we play a lot of equip spells in this build. We then play a single copy of Nini. Nini is great in this deck as a 1-of because this card helps out a lot in this build just as a 1-of because it has the ability that while this card is equipped with an equip card, quick effect, you can actually target a face-up monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase of the turn, which is a great effect to basically give your opponent a kaiju, then take the kaiju, and then kaiju them again, which is just really cool. I love this card in the deck as a 1-of because it does have a lot of utility and it just helps out a lot overall in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Diviner of the Herald. Diviner is really good in this deck as a 3-of and helps out a lot in the deck to be able to send your copy of Herald of Arclight from your extract to the graveyard so you can search out your copy of Ohime. And there's also some really cool plays to be able to send your copy of Ohime to the graveyard to basically make this card a level 8 because you can use any of your little Mikanko monsters to go in for a Psychic End Punisher because it'll actually boost this card to a level 8, and these level 3s will actually make this card go into a copy of Psychic End Punisher, which is really cool. I love that about this card, and Diviner is just one of the best normal summons in the entire build because you can easily get your Mikanko monsters out on the field, making this card one of the best normal summons to send like Herald of Arclight to the grave so you can get to that copy of Ohime. We then play, for the kaijus, we're going to be playing a single copy of the Star Destroying Kaiju, 1 copy of the Thunder King Kaiju. The reason we're playing these cards at 1 each is because they're the biggest kaijus that we can give to the opponent so we can swing into them with our Mikanko cards, so our opponent will take 3,300 points of damage. We then play a single copy of Dolgaram and a single copy of Gandarla. These cards are very important to be able to play in the deck at 1 each. I feel like 4 is the perfect number in this deck to be able to basically just give your opponent a kaiju and then swing into it. Something important to note though is we do also play Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. So as you're playing this deck, you might want to give your opponent one of the smaller kaijus and keep one of the larger kaijus for yourself when you do activate Slumber, because if you do, you can always get over the smaller kaiju with one of the 2 big kaijus, which is really, really good. Even though you do want to inflict more damage to the opponent, you still want to be able to get through that monster, which is why I do it that way. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is just one of the most generic generic hand traps in the entire game and basically just stops the opponent from touching the deck, which is why I play this card as a 3 of in the build. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, guys, we're going to start with a single copy of Double-Edged Sword. This card is a definite one-of in the build because it has a really cool ability that the equipped monster gains 2,000 attack points. Also, both players take any battle damage from attacks involving the equipped monster, which is insane for this card to be able to do because basically if your opponent has a kaiju on the field, you just equip this card to that kaiju, making it even bigger, and both players take the damage. But since we have Mikanko monsters, they say that your opponent takes any damage we would have taken, so they take both the damages, which is hilarious about this card, and it makes it super easy to OTK your opponent. I love that about this card, and it makes it so easy to win games, because you basically just kaiju your opponent, equip this to the kaiju, summon out a Mikanko monster, equip it with any card to be able to make it so your opponent takes the damage, swing into the kaiju, and you win the game. I love that about this card. It's hilarious. We then play 2 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is amazing in this deck just to deal with back row, and it helps out a lot to deal with monsters you don't want on the field. We play 2 copies of the Great Mikanko Ceremony. This card is great in this build as a 2 of as well, because it lets you special summon a Mikanko monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions, but return it to your hand during your opponent's end phase, which actually helps you summon out your copy of Ohime because it ignores the summoning conditions. We then play a single copy of Rondo. Rondo is really good as a 1 of in the deck because this card is basically Snatch Steal, which is crazy, and it's definitely a 1 of in the build. As you equip it only to an opponent's monster while you control a Mikanko monster, you take control of the equipped monster. It also neither player can activate that equipped monster's effect while you control it, which is not that big of a deal because basically just taking control of your opponent's monster is great because you can actually take a kaiju and then kaiju your opponent again. We then play 2 copies of Fire Dance. Fire Dance is great because it lets you special summon a Mikanko monster from your hand or grave, and if you do, equip it with this card. Then you can special summon 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard to their side of the field, forcing them to have a monster on the field so you can swing into it, which is great about this card. We then play 2 copies of Mikanko Dance. This card is really, really good as a 2 of in the build. I feel like 2 is like perfect in this deck. I don't feel like you need 3. I feel like 1 is not enough, but it's really good in this build because it has a great ability that at the end of the damage step, if your Mikanko monster battled, you can target 1 card on the field and return it back to the hand. But if this card's in your graveyard, you can actually target a Mikanko monster in your grave and special summon it. And if you do, equip it with this card, but banish it when it leaves the field, which is a great effect because you can discard this card with the effect of your copy of Ohime. And then if you already have a Mikanko in the graveyard, you can just revive it with this card, which is just so cool. And it helps out a lot overall in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Arabesque. Arabesque is really, really good and a definite 3 of because this card is basically an E-Telly for the deck. Because you can equip this to an opponent's monster and then basically you just special summon a Mikanko monster from your hand or deck. Because during your main phase, you can special summon a Mikanko monster from your hand or deck with a different original name than the equipped monster. And if you do, equip this card to that monster and return the monster this card was previously equipped to back to the hand. So you basically equip this to an opponent's monster, special summon a Mikanko from the deck, take this card, equip it to your Mikanko monster, and bounce the opponent's monster, which can be a kaiju, which is really cool to be able to just kaiju your opponent, equip this to that kaiju, and then special summon a Mikanko, and then bounce the kaiju back to the hand, essentially getting a double kaiju, which is super cool. Speaking of kaijus, we do play 2 copies of Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. Slumber is great because it board wipes the field and basically just forces your opponent to play, because if they don't do anything because they know you're playing Mikanko, you can basically just normal summon anything like a Diviner, drop this, give your opponent a kaiju, you take a kaiju, and then just go in for game like that, which is really cool. And I love that about this card because you can also banish it from the grave to be able to add a kaiju from your deck to your hand, which is great to search out the exact kaiju that you need. We then play 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. We really need to get to Ohime, and this card does search Ohime, which is why we play this card as a 3 of. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Prosperity is really good because the extract is very toolbox, so we don't need everything in the extract, so this card really helps out a lot overall in the build just to dig into the deck, and you can easily do 16,000 damage in this deck with cards like Double-Edged Sword and other Mikanko cards, and it's very easy to OTK the opponent, so you can even OTK through this card, so it's very easy just to pull off plays with this deck. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing 2, and that's going to be 1 copy of Spirit Walk and a single copy of Rivalry. I feel like these are the best 2 to play in the deck at 1 each. They're really easy to get to your copy of Huli, get to these cards, which is really nice because this card has the ability basically with Spirit Walk that you target a face-up monster your opponent controls, equip that face-up monster to a Mikanko monster you control as an equip spell. Then if a ritual monster card is on the field, you can inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each equip spell that you control, and you can banish this card from the grave and then special summon one of your Mikanko monsters that's banished or in your hand, which is a great effect just to instantly get a card on your side of the field, while also equipping an opponent's monster to one of your Mikanko monsters. I also really like Rivalry as a 1-up, because if you control a Mikanko monster, you can target a face-up monster on the field and equip it with 1 equip spell from your deck that can be equipped to it, and if an equipped spell is sent to the graveyard while this card is in your grave, except during the damage step, you banish this card and then target an equip spell in your grave and add it to your hand, which is a great ability, basically to give you access to any of your equipped spells at any time, making Huli one of the best cards in the entire deck, because this card helps you get to any of your equipped spells. So it's basically like additional copies of Hari, which is really, really good because of this card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with Herald of the Arclight. I feel like 2 is totally enough for this deck to be able to normal summon out your copy of Diviner, send this card to the graveyard, turn your copy of Diviner into a level 6, and also search out your copy of your Ohime, which is really good to be able to directly get to your copy of Ohime because it's going to get you more searches in the deck and helps you out a lot in this build. This card is a definite 2-up in the deck. And then play a single copy of Power Tool Braver Dragon. This card is really good as a 1-up in the build, as if this card is special summon, you can equip up to 3 equip spells with different names from your deck or graveyard to this card, which is great to be able to just do that. And also it's a walking negate, which is amazing, and I love that about this card. It's an amazing boss monster. It helps you thin the deck, and it's very easy to summon because any of your level 3s plus Diviners a level 6 makes this card, so it's very easy to make. We can play a single copy of Psychic End Punisher. Psychic End Punisher is very easy to make by normal summoning Diviner, sending your copy of Ohime from your deck to the graveyard, and then using any level 3 to be able to go into this card. And sometimes your opponent will have lower life points, and this card just ends games. It's in the name. End Punisher. We then play a single copy of Vampire Sheridan. We do have plenty of Snatch Steals in the deck. We have 2 with our copy of Nini and Rondo. So this card is very easy to make, especially since we do play level 6s, and with our copy of Diviner in the deck, to be able to send Herald, we can easily get a level 6 on the field and then use our copy of, say, Rondo to take an opponent's monster or Nini to take an opponent's monster, and then you just make this card, which is really cool, and it also gets rid of cards off the field. We then play a single copy of Breaksword. Breaksword pops cards on the field, but it also helps us step into our copy of our Downer Magician, and then our copy of Zeus, which board wipes the field. Any of these cards can be turned into a copy of Zeus, which is why we play them in the build. We then play a single copy of Access Code. Access Code is great because it pops multiple cards on the field, and it's just a great card overall in the deck. Play a single copy of Appaloosa. We can make it if we need to, and it's just really good overall in this build. 1 copy of Unicorn. Unicorn spin stuff, which is really nice. Phoenix to pop spells and traps. 1 copy of Donner. Donner's great at popping cards off the field as well. A copy of IP, and finally a single copy of Salamandrate Alamirage. Alamirage is great if you normal summon out your copy of Diviner and you don't have a way to get it off the field. You can just basically make Alamirage to give you some protection, but you don't go into the link monsters all that often, and so you can use them for your prosperity targets if you want to, and they're really good in the deck when you do use them, but when you don't need them, you basically just summon a Kaiju and then swing into it with one of your Mikankos and in the game. So these cards are prosperity targets down here. You can use stuff like the Sheridan as well, or the copy of the Zeus Downard and your Breaksword if you want to. If you don't see a way to summon out Psychic End Punisher, you can use that. So basically anything in the extra deck besides the copy of Herald are basically prosperity targets. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy. This deck is super fun. If you guys have never played Mikanko before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's super fun. It's insane how powerful this deck is, especially with just being able to basically just swing at the opponent, especially with cards like Double-Edged Sword. Like, I love that card in this deck, and it's super funny. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.